All right, welcome back to another episode of Asset Coach and Tax Strategist, and I'm so excited for today's video. Today's content is going to be really kind of, if you've been following me and has been a subscriber, you're going to find that our process thinks of things a little bit differently. We kind of go back to the original of what certain tools were created for and utilize those tools in your overall wealth, your overall assets, your overall tax strategy, and what that looks like. And so, as an asset coach and tax strategist, which is the name of the channel, but that's the title that I call myself, is that we need to understand all assets and all tools in this plan of accumulating the value of wealth. Okay, so let's talk about today's topic. Today's topic is going to talk about emergency funds, liquidity, access to capital, whatever you want to call it, however you want to say it. At the end of the day, there's so many opinions about this. There's different financial advisors, CFPs, professionals, blah, 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 who all have their opinion on it. And all are important opinions. The key, though, is the opinion that matches you, but also the opinion that allows the value of your wealth to continue to move forward and increase. Because remember, when we're talking about economic termites, remember, there's four major termites: taxes, inflation, time, and then laws and regulations are queen termite, right? Our politicians. Now, when we're talking about an emergency fund, that's affected by all four of these. Our politicians making decisions make you and I feel like we have to have some liquidity set aside in case there's an emergency. What's deemed as an emergency? New tires? A new car? Loss of a job? Well, think about yourself. If you're watching this, most of our members are physicians or business owners. So really the only thing we can equate to a loss of a job or some to that effect would be the pandemic that we all experienced in 2020, right? Some businesses were considered essential, some were not. What do we have set aside for that? There was a time frame and confusion. Will that happen again? I don't know. It happened once. Could it happen again? Again, I don't know. So what this brings up is access to capital. But while cash is sitting in a savings account, earning 1, 2%, 3%, whatever interest rates are based on inflation, so economic termite, whatever 1099 you earn off of that interest, taxes, in the time that money's in that cash, time, wow, we just hit all four economic termites with your emergency fund. And the point is the value of your cash is being eaten away by this fear of if something happens, this emergency, you need to have something off to the side, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's what do we use to accomplish that emergency fund? Do we use cash? Do we use a brokerage account? Do we use crypto and liquidity pools? Do we use fill in the blank? And I think they're all viable answers to this question. But obviously, you know, I have an opinion that I'm going to share with you now. Think about this. What were credit cards created for? Okay, all right, Bob's now going to tell us to. No, I'm not going to tell you to do anything. I just want you to think about this for a second. This was a light bulb that came off and popped up in my head. I'm like, huh, this is interesting. Think about this. Let's think about the credit card system or the credit system, the equity system. Think about it. So when you apply for a credit card, the bank or the financial institution that supports that credit card says that you are worthy to have this amount of credit limit. Okay, and what do they base it off of? Your credit score, right? Your income, basic information that you provide. Okay, now if you ask too many credit card companies for this, what happens? They ding it against you. It goes off your FICO score, right? Your FICO gets it. But you also have to have a certain debt to income ratio, a credit limit, usage, right? You have all these things that are pulling and tugging at this FICO score. Okay. So let's look at a credit card for example. Let's say a credit card, let's say Chase or any of the banks give you a credit limit of $10,000. And you're like, yeah, right? $10,000. And you start using your credit card and you have an introductory rate. And in that introductory rate, after a period of time, it no longer is introductory. And then they go back to their normal credit um, uh, expense. So as you go through this process and you say, okay, well, I'm going to start using this credit card because I heard somewhere that I can't just not use it. I got to use it and that helps improve my credit usage, which improves my FICO score, right? And so then that means I can get other debt, such as a mortgage, car loan, other purposeful loans at a lower credit limit because my FICO score is higher. So you start using your credit card, right? And you swipe it in 2 grand, you bought some furniture or whatever, and you're like, oh, there's minimum payment. We can make the minimum payment, maybe a little bit more, right? But we're not going to pay it off because we want to show this process of usage and paying it, and I got a debt and all this kind of stuff, right? All this affects your FICO. But over a period of time, your balance goes to closer to 50% of the limit. So you have $10,000 limit and now you're close to 5,000. What's happening to your interest rate? Have you ever noticed? The more you use your credit card, your interest rate actually increases the more your balance gets closer to your credit limit. Well, here's the funny thing. You're not going over the credit limit. And this credit limit is what the bank told you you can do. So they said you are credit worthy of $10,000. But if you use the $10,000, we're going to charge you higher interest based on what we said you could do. So you're not a credit risk. So now imagine that you're not uncredit worthiness because you haven't gone over your credit limit. And so all of a sudden, but your cost is going up. And here's the crazy thing about personal debt. As you pay this down and you show this, what's eventually what happens is that the financial institution will send you a notice saying, hey, by the way, guess what? We increased your credit limit by 2,000. So now your credit limit's at 12. Does your interest go down because now you're at 5 and you paid it down? The next time you go to 5, does the interest? No. No, this is the kind of that secret, so to speak, or the issue with credit cards and using of credit cards as spending. All right, here we go. You ready? With credit cards, the majority of the time, if you pay them off within 30 days, there's no balance on them, so therefore there's no interest owed. Okay? Now I say the majority of the time. Now, I'm sure there's certain credit cards out there that may charge based on your daily rate and your balance of interest. Okay, I'm just talking generalization. We're not going to go through every credit card and every financial institution's rules. Okay? Now, follow me here. So, when I'm working with my members at Terra Firma, they're all physicians or business owners. And so their cash flow, their income is healthy. So they don't really need to use credit cards. They use them typically for points. My doctors love Amex because of the point system. So they'll use them for points. Okay, makes sense. I use my credit cards for points. Okay, but here's what's interesting. That credit limit is access to capital, isn't it? It is, right? So when we're talking about an emergency fund, imagine with the various credit card limits you have in your scenario situation, you have 50,000 credit limit. You don't have any debt on your credit cards. So couldn't that 50,000, that access to that capital be considered your emergency fund? It's not costing you anything because you're not using it. It's sitting there. It's just credit limit just saying, hey, I'm here. Use me. You're not charged for that. Now, of course, there's some credit cards like Amex and some others that have annual membership fees. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about usage. So if you're not using that 50 grand, do you need that 50 grand now in your savings account earning the 1 or 2%? Getting a 1099 at the end of the year and paying taxes on that, so now your 1 to 2% is lower. Plus inflation, the Fed goal is 2%. So if you're earning 2% on your savings and inflation's 2%, you're at net zero. Plus the 1099, now you have taxes on that 1099. You're now negative. You've lost value on your cash, your emergency fund. That's not how you build wealth. Grant Cardone said it great. You should not have savings, you should have storage. Money should be stored to be able to use for that next asset or the next deal or that next thing that will help increase the value of your wealth, increase the value of what you're trying to accomplish, to increase your income stream, your cash flow stream. Okay? So if your emergency fund's just sitting there doing nothing, how productive are you? Well, you're productive, but your cash isn't. It's sitting on the couch eating potato chips is what's happening. No, you need your cash out in the yard mowing the lawn. It needs to be out there in a job working for you. You worked for it. Don't be so quick to not put it to work for you. That's how wealth is created. That's capitalism. That's how wealth gets accumulated. It's like a dripping faucet. Every little benefit to you helps. Over a period of time is a benefit. Here's the thing from an emergency fund perspective. If you now have a credit limit of 50,000, how often do emergencies happen? They're emergencies. They don't happen often. If you need to use your credit card due to an emergency, you've got 30 days to utilize, access other cash from other assets to pay for that. Or you develop, instead of paying it all off in that singular month, you pay a majority off and the next remaining balance over the next few months. You're controlling cash flow now. Versus, here we go. You have cash in your emergency fund. Emergency happens. You use that cash. Now what do you not have? Cash. No control over cash flow anymore. That emergency becomes a liability instead of an asset. Versus if we utilize credit as our emergency fund, that 50,000 cash in your savings is now in a liquid producing cash equivalent asset, generating 6%, 7%, 8%. And depending on what it is and how it's structured, it could be tax free or tax deferred, or maybe I should just say tax efficient. And you still have access to that capital so you can pay down that credit card for that emergency. But you're in control over the cash flow now. You're in control. And in some situations, that makes the most sense. Because these emergencies don't happen all the time. But if your emergency fund is there all the time, it's unproductive all the time. It's unproductive more often than emergencies. Why are we doing this? This is insane to me. Your value is going down and being deteriorated by the fear of emergencies. Great, use credit limit. Your home equity line of credit. You can get a HELOC and a home equity line of credit. You can have your credit cards and you have the access to the two. You don't pay interest on any of that until it's used. If it's not used, it's not costing you. Your cash can be productive, earning, building, growing. Doesn't that make much more sense? So one of the things I want you to have this mindset of is thinking about what's this look like? Okay. So as a member of Terra Firma, what we do for our members is, hey, Give us a list of your credit cards, what balance you have, what the credit limit is, and interest rate. And the interest rate's going to fluctuate. And I know President Trump right now, and at the time of this recording, has been talking about, minimizing or limiting or capping what credit cards can charge as interest. Okay. Which I think I can agree with that because I think it's a scam in the sense of how they say you can use this money, but then as you use it, they charge you more and more. And then your FICO score goes down because of your usage. But you said I could do this, right? Anyways, but that's how the system is. And most people don't know that's how it works. Okay. So, but again, if all of a sudden you have 100,000, 150,000 available credit, that can satisfy all your emergencies. You can use which credit card at which time for that emergency and that based on that interest and how that credit card's structured. Now, some people say, well, but Bob, hang on a second, time out. I can't pay my mortgage with a credit card. So if an emergency happens, and let's say I don't have the cash flow like COVID or a pandemic in 2020, something happens, my income cash flow stops. I still got to pay for my mortgage. Where am I going to pay for that? That's a great question. Well, when is your mortgage due? Is it due daily? Do you have to pay it on a daily basis? No. Do you have to pay it on a weekly basis? No. Do you have to pay it on a bi-weekly basis? No. We pay it on a monthly basis. So if you have access to capital in a productive asset and you still have access to it, well, you know when your mortgage payment's due. Pull that capital out. But Bob, what if I don't know how long the emergency will be? Then you pull out enough capital to meet the expenses that you can't use your credit card for to pay for those expenses on a monthly basis. Who's in control? You are. Thank you so much. You're the only asset that you have that has a brain. There is no other asset that you and your household has that has a brain. Your real estate doesn't have a brain. Your retirement account doesn't have a brain. Your savings account doesn't have a brain. You get the idea. It's you. So it's you who gets to dictate how this cash is used. Not old financial advice, if you will, that says, oh, you should put savings aside 3 to 6 months, earning 2%. And yes, don't worry about inflation. Yes, the goal is 2%, but don't worry about that. It's your emergency fund. It needs to be sitting there. It's BS. You work too hard for your money. Don't let somebody tell you bad advice. In my opinion, that's bad advice. Why? For everything I just explained. If you don't understand it, go back to the beginning of this episode, rewatch it, jot down your notes, jot down your comments, send them in the comment section, give us a thumbs up. Thank you so much for spending this time with us, going through this process. If all of a sudden I created way more questions than I did answers, great. Put those questions in the comments. We'll create another episode answering those questions. But other than that, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for your time. And again, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. We drop episodes every Thursday. This is a great way to get content and information that is a really almost opposite of what everybody else is saying. Doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong. It's just a different thought process and opinion of how to look at things. That's part of education and research. Getting all of the picture to make an educated decision, not a decision based on a portion of the information. So, thanks so much. Have a great day.